This is Mega Man Pinball. Like many people who are into modifying and restoring arcade games, my hobby eventually veered into the realm of pinball, which resulted in this. It is a retheme of a beat-up but working 1979 Williams Flash. It's the first and only pinball I own, so it took a long time to finish. There was a lot of learning involved. Flash was a good candidate for a retheme because it had a large production run and genuinely is a great playing pinball machine. It has a lot of the fun stuff you think of in a quintessential pinball. It has the standard 3-bank of pop bumpers, stand-up targets, drop targets, and a spinner. There are no ramps, but for a 1979 pin, Flash has a lot of bells and whistles. Literally, in fact, as Flash is an early enough solid-state pin that they weren't sure about the electronic sounds, so there's an alternate sound option that mimics the chiming sounds you might hear on an electromechanical pinball. But being a Williams machine, the sounds are fantastic and remind me of Williams arcade classics like Robotron and Defender. I wouldn't necessarily retheme any pinball. If I had come across a space shuttle or a sorcerer, I would have absolutely kept it as is. But for a pinball that had almost 20,000 units made, with art of, let's say, questionable quality, that I needed to take apart anyway to restore, yeah, it was time for that off-brand Harrison Ford to go.
I know what I have to do, but I don't know if I have the strength to do it.
It took me a while to settle on a theme. I considered video games like Portal, Metal Slug, Minecraft, and The Legend of Zelda, my favorite bands like Stavesacre and Starflyer 59, and for a long time was convinced it would be an Avatar The Last Airbender pinball, which would have been a great fit. In the end, though, it had to be Mega Man. My wife and I both have nostalgia for the early Mega Man NES games. I remember obsessing over a strategy guide I had as a kid, even before renting 2 and 3 repeatedly from a local store, and eventually owning my own copy at 4. The series has incredible music and art design, and is just a fun, family-friendly theme. So, how was it done? Essentially, for this era of pinball machine, retheming is mostly creating new Playfield plastics and backbox art, adding or substituting music and sounds, and painting or decorating the cabinet to fit the theme. Thankfully, there is no lack of high-quality Mega Man imagery available on the internet, and in Udon's excellent Mega Man Complete Works book. But the project still spent a long time in Photoshop purgatory while I obsessed over the art, stitching together artwork that I thought suited the machine. Eventually, the new Playfield art was printed on a large sticker, applied to the wood, and covered with an automotive-style clear coat. Plastics were traced and new ones cut from acrylic on a scroll saw, with a transparent sticker with artwork attached to the final cuts. New backglass art was printed on backlit vinyl. Music and sound effects were mixed with the original pinball sound by way of a wave trigger device from Spark Fun Electronics and a small audio mixer. Along the way, I made some small changes to the playfield. The game Flash was, not surprisingly, the first to use flash lamps, which were larger, brighter lights that would indeed flash when certain goals were completed in the game, like finishing a whole bank of drop targets. In the original game, these 2 lamps were in the center of the playfield, under a large transparent blue boomerang-shaped insert. I knew I wanted that part of the playfield to invoke Mega Man battling through Dr. Wily's castle, so I moved the lamps to the top back corners of the game. The game had 2 entrances to the top rollover lanes, which of course spell R-O-L-L after Mega Man's sister robot. It seemed a little too easy to access the top of the playfield, so I changed one into a stand-up target lane featuring Cutman, guarded by a physical magnet rotating under the playfield, making it a trickier shot. And of course, I added some Playfield toys. A game of this era usually doesn't have much in the way of physical objects in the playfield, as there really isn't much clearance between the bottom of the playfield and the top glass. But I fell in love with a line of Mega Man figures made by Bandai and released in Japan a few years ago. I knew I wanted to work them in, so I routed out a cavity to mount each of them below the level of the playfield, barely squeezing in Cutman, Airman, Protoman, and Roll. Eddie is from a different line of toys and keychains from Japan. And once I knew that pop bumpers were once sometimes called jet bumpers, I knew I had to have Met bumpers, using the hard-hatted common enemy Met from the games. These little guys were from Jasco Games' absolutely dismal 2016 Mega Man the board game, but were just the scale I needed for the pinball. And the topper is a wearable Mega Man Mega Buster arm cannon that I got on clearance from GameStop. I wired the internal trigger to the flipper buttons and put a microphone inside, so that it provides the Mega Buster sounds when the buttons are pushed, as well as giving some extra visual flair. In the end, I am pleased with the finished result. Is it perfect? No. But my wife and daughter and I and nieces and nephews have had a lot of fun with it. And now the various Mega Man soundtrack songs are stuck in my head even more than usual, which makes the whole project worthwhile. And one interesting thing is that I found a date written inside the cabinet that was only a few days away from the day that I was born. Need to think we're about the same age, children of the 70s, but just barely. I could never have finished this project without the resources and information that were made available to me. I first committed myself to a retheme after seeing a 1981 Flash Gordon pin, masterfully converted to a Ghostbusters theme, years before Stern Pinball released their own licensed take on the property. I also want to specifically shout out G.W. Goss, whose gorgeous Flash retheme in a 70s comic art style you can find at flashredo.weebly.com. Not only was their write-up extremely helpful, but they were kind enough to share art files and Playfield scans with me, which gave me a huge head start on the project. The music I used was from the Let's Listen extended series of looped versions of the Mega Man music by Silent Weapons 3 on YouTube. For another great take on what a Flash pinball could become, be sure to check out Doug Spada's impressive homebrew Queen retheme. And of course, I would have never gotten anything done without the pictures and info at the Internet Pinball Database, the tutorials and knowledge shared at the Pinside Forums, and help with getting the right parts from Terry at Pinball Life. I'll have links to these projects and sites in the video description below. A special thanks to my wife, who helped me along the way and was my sounding board for ideas, and who was extremely supportive to this crazy, long-running project of mine. And thank you for watching.